All right, let's do it live on a Monday edition of the program. Merely Bo, the great Gibbe here. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, buddy, it is officially draft week, and it might be boring and uneventful to some. However, it is not for us, given the fact that we still have like 15 hours worth of draft shows this week on the University Hospitals Cleveland Browns radio network.
We have this was and has been for the better part of 2 decades. This has been a draft town. It's been a draft town in the NFL. It's been a draft town in the NBA. We pay very close attention to those lotteries. The Cavaliers benefited very greatly, as big as you can benefit from those lotteries. But even with us, and it's a byproduct of the lack of success of a 50, for the better part since the organization came back, the Super Bowl was the draft. It's been that way. And anybody you talk to around town, and I think at times maybe we overvalue first-round picks because it's something that means so much. So we make it there's this belief that they mean more than they do because it is the Super Bowl, and so you want to hit on them. And so now we've had a couple of times in the last. Well, after 2018, we didn't have one with Odell Beckham Jr. We didn't have one last year, and we don't have one this year from a first-round pick standpoint. And I don't know if the town really knows what to do without one. It's kind of a weird spot.
I can say this, too. This is the first time in a long time there is not a lot of buzz. Even when we didn't have a first-round pick, there was still a buzz because after the Odell trade, there was some big expectations, and there was a lot of excitement. Was he the final piece? And, right now, no first-round pick, no second-round pick.
Yep.
There's 73 players that will be chosen before you are on the clock as of today, Monday, at 1:03 p.m.
Yeah.
And I think people are like, I don't know what to do. Am I going to hang out?
Do I watch?
Do I watch? You can watch Thursday night. You're going to know the players.
Yeah.
Friday, it's our job on the network to kind of familiarize. But really, it's going to be familiarizing once we pick a player.
Yeah,
that might not be until 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night.
When we solicit the mailbag or we take mailbag questions on social and we have the fun with that, we'll get a question about, what should we do at 73? And Nathan knows this roster better than anybody. The short answer is, who the hell knows? And so you're in a position where this is a position of strength in that you could field a 53 right now that you feel like's a playoff team in the AFC. If you get lucky and you crush this draft, you could see a starter coming at defensive tackle. That's in play. But that's about it, right? That, I don't know, maybe defensive end sort of ish. If he went nuts, somebody really elevated, it's possible. But it's not very likely, I don't think, that's the case. So in that sense, it's a benefit. But in terms of trying to prognosticate what we're going to do at 73, there's no chance, man, because of what we just said. Even in the other years where we didn't have first-round picks, the Odell year and then last year, there were certain specific needs that needed to be met in those drafts. And so you could kind of circle those position groups. Here you could go – Andrew Berry could go in about a half dozen different ways in the third round. He really could. And it just depends, I think, what the draft falls to. I would also say that I don't even know if they would be – I think they're probably position agnostic. I don't think it really matters. I think they could just take whoever their highest graded player is at 73, just take him.
I agree. I think it's in play. Corner, especially if you can find a slot corner in the third round. A tight end. If you wanted to bolster that, they could go running back in the third round.
Yeah.
You saw Dane's 7-round mock. We talked to him last week about it. Yes, it's taking a quarterback at some point early on day 3.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, and they're going through exercises today in the war room and going through some things and final thoughts and. They're playing out some situations.
Yeah.
I think it's all right, what happens if anything, you're trying to figure out, is there going to be a guy that falls that's supposed to go early on day 2 that falls maybe to the mid or late second round that you want to go up and get, or even the early third?
Yeah, we can be nimble. I mean, you've got 8 picks. You're not drafting 8 players. So
yeah, I hope not.
I just don't see how you could. So you'll either trade into next year's draft,
which I don't think you have a lot of draft picks right now. 4 or 5 picks, I think, for next year.
So then that would make a lot of sense to trade into that draft. The other thing that you could do is you could do what you just said, and that is somebody falls and you go up and get them in the back half of the second round. That's the other kind of path for it is that. But you really, until you see how the draft falls, and it's almost fool's gold and a fool's errand to sit here and try to guess where it could go. And all of this should be, by the way, for Browns fans out there, this should be a positive because it tells you that your roster is really good. It's odd, like the Cincinnati Bengals, they picked 28. As of right now, Mixon is still on the roster. As of right now, they don't really have a tight end. They need to draft a starter at tight end, or they need to go see try and convince somebody late in the free agents process. They need really probably another safety, and they need a corner because they let all those guys walk. Now they've recouped some of that, but they need to draft people who can come in and play
and be impact players.
Be impact players, absolutely. And there isn't anybody who would argue that we are better off than they are going into next season. We're not. They've been to the last 2 AFC championship games. They're in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But I do think that we have fewer questions going into the draft than they do. We have fewer things that need to be answered in the draft because we've sorted things out by the time we get there. So that's kind of an idea. And here's the other thing. It's Monday. It's a little after 1 o'clock. Who the heck knows what's going to happen as this week goes along with the quarterbacks, with Rodgers, with Lamar. All of that stuff is still floating around out there too. So you feel like some of that stuff is going to get sorted out in the next couple of days.
I mean, I'd like it to, but then there's also a part of me that's like, if that stuff gets sorted out, then what the hell is everybody going to talk about in America? Because right now, it's been one of the quietest off seasons that I can remember.
It's been very quiet. It's been, just look at C.J. Stroud's last week. Like, why did all that happen? You and I have been in this business long enough to know that all of those talking points that came out about the former Buckeye quarterback in the last week, they're all coming from some point of interest. So who benefits from that? So you had the Brady Quinn story last week, where he talked about the Manning Academy or whatever, and I reached out to people who I trust, who I think would know, and they were unfamiliar with that story entirely. Then you had the story over the weekend. I had never even heard of an SP test?
Yeah.
I never heard of it.
Is that replacing the Wonderlic?
I have no clue.
I thought that they were going to replace the Wonderlic, so maybe that's it.
I have no idea. So maybe that's a new Wonderlic. Then what I was reading this morning is and if you weren't paying attention this weekend, God bless you. You're better off for it.
Yeah.
He had scored very poor on this test, of which nobody even knows what it's about. No one has a point of reference on it. It got leaked out that he scored very poorly. Bryce Young scored very well. So somehow this gets leaked out. Well, it turns out that, as I was reading this morning, the number that was leaked out was not his score, but the percentile he was in, is the way I understood it this morning. So who gets that out there? Who's putting that out there to pull him back? Is it a team that wants him to drop? Is it Indy? I don't know. The Great Rock, fantastic.
Big week for her.
Big week for her. Yep.
She'll be sleeping here.
Yeah, she looks great. She's in the cream. She's got a cream hoodie, and it looks like a cream shoe as well. So she's, how big of a fans we are of that. But that's the silly season that we're in right now. Like, you all, and I'm speaking to you, the audience, you guys love the draft and football so much that you have to have something to talk about in relationship to it always, even if there isn't anything. And I think that's how the Stroud stuff happened last week. And how it's continuing to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen to him. I saw the betting favorite was Levis going 2. By the time we got to this weekend, the most popular exacta was Young Levis 1-2. Really? I mean, can I introduce you to Zach Wilson? I mean, what are we doing?
We'll get to Peter King's mock coming up in segment 2, but He even says it in his article this morning. A month ago, C.J. Stroud was the odds-on favorite to be the first pick in the draft. Today, it's no lock he goes in the top 7.
So what changed? He had a great pro day. He had a great combine. He still played the way he played against Georgia.
Yeah.
What changed? So that's where you're at with this stuff. So it's absolutely bonkers. Tough weekend for the Cavs. Hated to see it.
I don't know if I have seen a team buckle under the Madison Square Garden pressure. Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna blame it on that.
Yep.
Because I don't know how you cannot be ready to play when you are tied at 1 game apiece.
Do you think it was do you think sometimes – I wonder sometimes if it's just – you probably had this when you played. Like there are just some operations that are just bad matchups for you. You know? I kind of just feel like that the Knicks were just – and they took 3 out of 4 in the regular season. Their physicality, they're really in your face. They're like an old school New York team with Tibbs. I mean, that's kind of where they are. Length. They're just kind of bullying.
Yeah, and they're all tall. They're all
they're physical too. It's not like we got a couple of tall guys. We don't have guys that physical.
If I recall, like wasn't it a month ago? I was trying to think back to this. I was reading things like it was when we played Miami right after Kevin Love went to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, that's the one team we don't want to face in the playoffs. We want the Knicks. Yeah. I can remember there being a conversation about wanting to play the Knicks. And after watching the Knicks, I don't know where that would have come from or why you would have even had that take.
Well, we had, they had difficulty with them all season. So it was, I think it's like, the backdrop too of, Mitchell wanted to go to New York and the Knicks wouldn't put Barrett in the deal as I understand it. And so that's how
good decision by them.
Well,
recently.
Yeah, Mitchell's going to be a first-team All-NBA guy. He's transformed the franchise, but this stage, it's a tough stage, and you can see it. Like they just feel like they're not quite ready for all that comes with it, and I don't know why the Knicks are ready. My feeling was like, well, if you have the best player in the series, usually you win.
Well, and I'm pulling up rosters here because airing of the grievance time, if we're going to talk about this right now. I don't know what Jared Allen is doing. He looks lost. And maybe it's just because he's got so much going on trying to battle 2 or 3 guys, but he almost looks scared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like, get in there. After the 3rd straight time yesterday of someone driving to the paint on him, can you knock someone down, please?
Mm-hmm.
I believe I tweeted that. Knock him down. At least send a message that maybe it's not the wisest decision to come into the paint.
Yeah. So
I
tough spots. Also, these games have been all over the place from a time standpoint.
Yeah.
So we played Friday at 8:30, and then you play Sunday at 1, and then you play Wednesday at 7. Is that the way I understand it? The only thing I can think of is that because ESPN is and TNT are both trying to balance both the NHL and NBA, you're getting all these weird start times. Because I don't recall, like usually you're in the 7 o'clock window, you're in the 3:30, you know what I mean? Like it's usually not 8:30, 1, 7, all over the place. The Lakers series has been all over the place. It's been 3 o'clock last Sunday, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock. It's been everywhere. So it's
been fun. How about that lunatic? Was it Brooks?
Your boy Dylan Brooks.
Come on,
man!
Like, and then you're going to blame it on the media and the fans for getting thrown out of that game?
Yeah, there's a long list of those guys, those Kobe stopper, LeBron stopper guys who start to believe their own headlines a little bit and think they're a little more important than they are. And the reality is, it's like the line from Mad Men: "I don't think about you at all." Like the media doesn't think about Dylan Brooks at all.
No,
none. Like
you're trying to make yourself relevant.
Yeah. Did you see LeBron before the game walk right up to him, put him in his place, and then it's 35-9 after the first quarter?
Yeah.
You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit into the wind.
Look,
you don't blow the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you don't run your mouth on LeBron.
With LeBron,
do it.
But you woke him up. You deserve everything you get and then some for what's coming.
Yeah.
If you're the Knicks what do you do with Randall? Like, he's been a non-factor, and when he's been in the game, he's almost been a liability outside of that Game 3.
Luckily for them, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Hart and Barrett and those guys just seem to fit better.
Yeah, there's they're going to win the series. We did 3-1 before, but we had the guy we just referred to. We don't have him anymore.
Yeah,
so
he's not walking through the door.
No, they're going to win the series. I think 3-1's a lot to overcome. And then, by the way, Giannis is out, so they could put a scare in Milwaukee without that, which is what I thought was important for the Cavs to do. There's like a trajectory that you want to follow, and I do think it was really important for them to get to the second round this year.
I just like, and the other just maddening factor, like you have been such a good defensive team this entire season. How can you not slow down Brunson? That kid's getting everything he wants. Like, make him put the ball on the ground. That's the only thing I can think, because and even then, it's like, we're a great defensive team.
Well, here's though, like, if Mitchell's not going to get you 30, then he's not getting you much. So, like, if he's at, what happened over the weekend, then it really doesn't matter the rest of it. Like, he's got to get you 30. That's the operation. So, it's
but
tough.
Like, at the same time, you can't stop them down the stretch. I think they scored 5 straight possessions.
Yep.
Like, you're not getting back into the game that way.
No. And frankly, as bad as the weather's been for the last week, it would have been nice to have this go on for a little bit. It's no end in sight, is there? There's not sun anytime. No. I mean, it's sunny right now.
I mean, it was supposed to be decent today. I had my good friend Mark, the electrician, coming out to the house.
Yeah.
And he on Saturday, he said, hey, weather not great. I'm not going to be coming out. I'm like, absolutely. Like, there's nothing immediate that it's some work that we've had on the schedule for a while. Please come at a time where the weather is good, because it's an outdoor job.
Yep.
He's like, I'll be there Monday. You sure? Like, you don't have to. Yeah, it's supposed to be sunny and 50. Well, how's that going out there?
It snowed, rained on the way over.
Snow rain is exactly what it was this morning in Olmsted Falls.
Yeah, we had I'm just looking at this. Like, it's a long ways out. We don't have a day with a 7 until a week from this coming Saturday.
Yeah.
The 7th of May. And it's just rain and cold. Yeah. April's tough. April and March are tough, man. And beginning of May, I got news for you. Not great either.
No,
it doesn't. Bootsy had a great line last night. We were sitting there kind of winding down.
Oh, I put it in the rundown.
Oh, do you have it in? Oh, yeah, you do.
I do.
So he just out of the blue, he goes, man, I think the weekend should be a week long.
Sign me up, kid.
Sold. And he goes, like, we go to school for a week. We should be off for a week.
I like 1 week on, 1 week off.
1 week
like a
on,
firefighter.
Right.
24 on, 48 off. Great.
This feels like a win, man. Get that done. We also had a big moment. Beamsy had a big moment. We were youth sports all weekend long, is typically the case. And NBC, we had kind of a rough Saturday, and I had already eaten, and I said, it was at night, and I said, what do you want? I said, I'll stop anywhere, wherever you want. He goes, Dad, I haven't had Taco Bell in a long time. And he's only had it once ever in his life. And I said, I go, okay, yeah, we can do Taco Bell. So we go in there, and he ordered the Doritos Locos Tacos.
One of my faves.
How do you things undefeated? So we get home, and like, Beamsy starts eyeing it from afar. He's like, now what's this? What's going on here? What's this? And I said, oh, it's taco. So he's never had it. He'd never had Taco Bell in his life. So he comes in. I go, would you like a bite? And he goes, yeah. So he has a bite, and he takes a big bite of the Doritos taco, and he takes a bite. And I go, what do you think? And he goes, geez, it's delicious.
You're darn right it is, kid.
It's real good, man.
You're darn right.
Quite good.
As you said, undefeated.
Yeah, pretty good.
I love a good Locos taco.
They're so good.
They
it's
are.
one of the biggest. I hadn't had one in years. I ordered one for myself, and I gave Beamsy half of it. Crushed it. Absolutely.
Hey, how did Bootsy do make in his lacrosse debut?
I got the video proof. Goal in his debut. Got a win over Chagrin Falls, 4-2. So nice job out of him.
That's just going to inflate the ego.
Yeah. He did. We were so they tried to make him do 2 passes, and he was having a lot of us parents weren't aware that they were making them do that. So they would get like breakaways, and we would be like, shoot it, and they wouldn't. And the coaches were like, they've got to pass twice. Oh, okay, fine.
How about filling in the fan base here?
I guess maybe I should know. It's been a while since the 2 older ones played at this level. So yeah, but he did get a goal, and they got a little win. So he was pretty excited and pretty chesty. About that. Yeah, pretty chesty about that. So yeah, all good. Did you have a good weekend, other than the Cavs losing?
Dude, it was yeah. I hung out. Like, we got some stuff done, but also vegged out. Had some movie time. Had some.
There you go.
Watched some hoops. Friday night, the wife was. We were dealing with some stuff. The in-laws upgrade on a security system, and it's pouring down rain and outside trying to unload. Oh, the family bought we buy a cow.
Yeah.
And it's all chopped up. Well,
sure.
It arrived Friday night when I'm outside dealing with the alarm people.
Yeah.
So I'm now unloading a cow into the freezer.
It's a lot of beef.
Yeah, it's a lot of beef. So I'm unloading it, and my wife's like, oh, yeah, the freezer out in the garage. Good to go, the in-laws. I open it up. I'm like, there's 4 turkeys in here. Like, these have got to come out.
Yep.
Who needs a turkey? throw the bat signal out. I got to clean out a freezer. This is going to take every bit of space. I think I got 1 turkey back in, but 3 had to find homes.
3 had to find new homes.
I'm like, this is new beef. Turkey's been here since Christmas.
It's enough. It's enough with the turkeys.
Yeah.
One last thing. NBC's been into like, I don't know, he's had this interest in like 90s movies. So we'd watch like Mission Impossible and that stuff. And,
I like it.
He goes, okay, let's watch Mission Impossible 4. And I said, let's go for something a little more fun maybe. And I go, what do you think about, why don't we try Ocean's 11?
Ooh.
So we pop in Ocean's 11, and if my memory served that there wasn't anything I had to be worried about him seeing in it, that it's pretty tame and pretty fun. So it holds up tremendously. It's great. It's interesting. Clooney shows up and starts talking. He goes, Dad, that's Fantastic Mr. Fox, the voice of the Fantastic. Yeah, that's one way of describing Clooney. We're watching at the end, and my wife like paratroops in the last 30 minutes and starts asking questions about, now what's going on here with this? I'm like, honey, you've seen this.
I was going to say,
the kid has not seen it? No, she has, lots. I go, you've seen it. He has not. Let's not ruin the end.
Pipe down in the back.
Come on. So he loved it. So it was good. It was, and that holds up. Very good. It's nice to find those ones from that era that are still very, very watchable, and that one absolutely is. Lots to get to. It is draft week. There's a lot of silly season stuff out there. We'll try to separate fact from fiction, but that's damn near impossible, to be quite honest with you. Draft week is here. Be sure to catch the Browns draft preview show tonight, 7 to 8, 850 ESPN Cleveland, along the University Hospitals Cleveland Browns Radio Network. Browns general manager Andrew Barry, the Athletics Dane Brugger, are going to join Ken and Z on the program tonight. We're off and running on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Serious lawyers, serious injuries. Call Wayne Hunter, Elk, Ohio for a free case review. Elk and Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. It's going to be chaos, man. It's going to be straight chaos leading up to this. There's quarterbacks at the top. There are 2 veteran quarterbacks that are still out there. One of the required readings is Peter King's Football Morning in America. You referenced this earlier, Gibbe, his line about C.J. Stroud. There's a chance he doesn't go in the top 7. So he puts a mock draft together, and he has the Titans moving up to 3 to get Stroud in a trade with Arizona.
Now,
So
he
who's
only
he have
does,
going 2?
He does 1 mock draft.
That's it. 1. Always does.
Yep. And this is it. And this was his big bomb.
So we used to I just wondered, like, what would that package look like that it would take to go up there to get that. That's the first thing that I thought of. And then the second thing I thought of, we did this, we're invested a little bit in the Ohio State guys. And so I remember in the Justin Fields draft, you're like, what's the perfect spot? It was San Francisco. And instead they went Trey Lance. And if you were to do that same thing with C.J. Stroud, what would be the right place for him? Because it's nature versus nurture, right? You have to have the talent, but then you have to be put in the best position to succeed. So where is that? He would have stability in Tennessee with Vrabel because he's not going anywhere.
And clearly the Titans seem to have moved on from Malik Willis.
Yeah, it didn't take long.
Nope.
That didn't take long at all.
But if you know, then best thing you can do is move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Arizona would love to do that because Tennessee picks 11, I think. So they would go back to 11 and pick up some other stuff.
I mean, is that are you giving up 3 first-rounders?
No, I don't think so. I think you're giving up 2. You're giving up, really 1. You're going to swap first-rounders next year. I think you give up next year's 1, probably a 2 this year, and maybe a 2 next. 2 2s and a 1 to move up from 11 to 3. I think that's about all it would take. I don't know that there's that many people wanting to do it because they've certainly been trying to do it with Houston this whole process. Houston's been trying to move up. So to me, it feels like there might not be that much interest to do it, but we're a long ways out. It's Monday. You could see other teams like make a little bit of a push here. So who does he have going second then?
He has Tyree Wilson, edge rusher, Texas Tech.
I'll tell you what, if all of this is true and the only guy that Houston wanted was Bryce Young, then their failure in winning the final game is one of the biggest bungles in the history of the sport. I mean, you blew it, boy, as big as you can blow it. There's no other way. If they were only interested in one quarterback, all they had to do was lose and they would have gotten it. And instead they're going to go, and if they end up taking a defensive end instead of trading out and have somebody come up to 2.
Well, and I know we had the general on Friday, and he said, look, like, guys aren't paid to lose games. Like, players want to win. Like, then it's you as a front office that should go, we're going to do everything we can not to win this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. It's too critical.
Yeah.
It's too critical. Yeah. And that's why, going back a couple of weeks, I think the NFL is inevitably going to need to be in a position where there's a draft lottery to discourage exactly that, because that will happen. A smart team would have lost that game and controlled their own destiny in the draft as opposed to what happening to Houston. He has Levis going 4 to Indy. I don't know what to make of Levis. He played more than Richardson, but Richardson, what I saw of Richardson, and I watched quite a bit of SEC football, what I saw from Richardson was a higher ceiling than what I saw from Levis. But
yeah,
I just can't get past the fact that
it is alarming to me that Will Levis had a bad pro day. Like, you shouldn't have bad pro days.
Yeah, you
should be 100 out of 100.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
you should.
If you don't win your pro day, I'm alarmed.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with pro days.
Yeah. So he's got all of the quarterbacks going in the top. So where does he have Richardson going? To Seattle or something?
All the way down to 23.
Oh, there he is.
Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, wow. So then he's got Hendon Hooker as the 4th quarterback off the board going 12 to the Texans.
Yeah.
Hooker was hurt in the what do you have, an Achilles or an ACL at the end of the regular season with Tennessee?
Felt like it was an ACL, but I could be wrong.
He was a starter at Virginia Tech and then transferred to Tennessee and was really good in Josh Heupel's
It was an
scheme.
ACL.
ACL? Yeah, thanks, bud. So the ACL for Hooker late in the season that kind of cost him. He's 24. Excuse me. But I don't – like that doesn't bug me at quarterback.
No. I'm fine if
doesn't
that's
bug
the
me at
guy
all.
that you think can turn around your franchise, and you can get him at 12 as opposed to number 2.
Yeah. I have a hard time thinking Richardson goes to 23, but then, I'm trying to remember last year at this time were people thinking Willis would be a first-round pick? I can't remember if they had already soured on him or if it was still that he was going to be.
Everything was good up until I think we all thought no matter what, someone's going to take him.
Yeah.
Like all these guys are still going to go in the first round.
Sure.
And then draft day came around and it was like, well, maybe not so much.
Right. Yeah. No, it didn't happen that way. So he only takes one at bat at this. We'll see how he did. He did mention the Aaron Rodgers thing. It's 40 days, as he notes today in Monday Morning Quarterback, that Aaron Rodgers said, my intention was to play for the Jets. There's no trade yet. I won't be concerned, King writes, until we get to the end of day 44 Friday when rounds 2 and 3 are staged, when the Jets have 2 second-round picks that could be used as a potential deal for Green Bay. No deal has to be done, but that's when I would be concerned. I think if you're the Packers, it's pretty straightforward. Like, you would want those assets recouped now.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have Aaron Rodgers. We get picks. So what's that going to look like? Is it both your twos, which it seems crazy that that's it, considering what some of these quarterbacks net? And I guess that's just because Rodgers has some leverage with them. But it just seems weird to me that
there should be a number 1 pick thrown in here.
I agree. I don't understand how.
But from day one, that's been the case. Everybody's like, it could be a conditional 1 if he plays 2 years, or maybe it's a first, but more than likely it's a couple 2s. And I'm like, this is a guy that's still one of the top 7 quarterbacks in the National Football League.
I mean,
maybe an argument at top 5.
He just won the MVP 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I know it was bad
Lamar,
last
who
year.
won it 5 years
ago. No. I mean, it's 2 years ago he won it. So, look, the Packers are notoriously a pretty smart organization. The Ravens, pretty smart organization. I just have a hard time believing that both of those organizations will go into this draft without certainty at quarterback, one way or another. And there's nothing on Lamar out there at all. Nothing. But he also doesn't have anybody to leak it.
Yeah.
So.
And he had a bad week last week, frankly, with Jalen Hurts' contract and the amount of guaranteed money.
Yeah. I don't.
That doesn't help his cause.
I wouldn't think so. I would think it would be a situation where you acquiesce a little bit to it, but I don't know. But the fact that those two things are still sitting there, I'm with Peter on the Rodgers thing. If we get to Friday and nothing's done, I'd be shocked. Same thing on Lamar, though. Like, the Ravens are too savvy to do that. There's just no way. There's no way. So that's we'll see.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think the Lamar stuff's going to get done this weekend or this week. I actually might be a little surprised by that. Now, the Aaron Rodgers thing.
So you think the Baltimore Ravens, Gibbe, are going to draft without knowing who their quarterback is?
Well, in their mind, they have their guy. They signed him to a transition tag. He hasn't signed it yet, but well,
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, those things are.
I mean, no one's going to give you anything for a trade.
No. I mean, what they did was incredibly savvy. It maybe alienated him permanently, but it was very, very savvy.
Yeah. I don't know. I see the Lamar thing dragging out.
Yeah.
I think the Aaron Rodgers thing has to happen here this week.
We'll see. We'll see how it all goes. I'm with you. I think you have to have certainty on these things. Yeah. You really do.
Did you see who Peter King had going number 17? It's on your sheet there.
Oh, my God. You even bolded it.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I don't want that.
No.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, 17 to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That would be such a Steelers pick.
Him on one side, Pickens on the other?
You know what I think? I don't think much of Pickett in terms of ceiling or what he can be. but you knew if they do something like that, which would be very much in the cards for them, if they do something like that, this is what you do know about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They will put him in the best possible position to succeed. They will not leave him on an island. They will not Justin Fields him. They've already got decent weapons. They got Najee, who's great in blitz pickup. He's great as a dump-off guy in that he's willing to take hits. He's not all that productive, but he's willing to take hits. They already have 2 great receivers. You had a third one with Freiermuth, and you're giving him a fighting
Allen
chance.
Robinson, whose pressure is going.
Oh, that's right.
Now.
That's right. Allen
yeah,
Robinson's
they went
in
and
the
got
mix.
him last week.
That's true. Yeah, so they've got that would be a lot of weaponry.
Yeah,
if they pull all of that off.
I
don't want
I looked
that.
at that. I did a double take. I swore for a few minutes, and then what's he doing? What's he
Beautiful baby blue. Some shoes that end in A. You know, that's it. That's all he's doing.
Living to be king.
Yeah. Not letting this weather get to him.
Glad someone isn't.
I walked into we had legitimate grapple yesterday as Bootsy was playing. And I walked in. I'm like, well, I'm here, so I'll hit the Heinens in Chagrin Falls. How different can it be than the Heinens at my house, in my place? It can't be that much different than the Heinens in my town. So I thought, well, I'll go in there. This thing was like a labyrinth wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a maze. I could not find my way around this place. Aisles going this way, like some sort. I walk in, there's like a square thing that I couldn't get out of. It was insane. It was insane. And I don't know if I was just fried from the weekend or no sleep. I don't know. But I could not figure out the flow. Grocery, give me a nice flow. What am I doing? I'm up and down aisles.
You're
That's
either
all I want to
north,
do.
south, or east-west.
West. You can't mix it. You can't go half north-south, half east-west, half, I don't even know, triangle? I don't know what rhombus? That thing was brutal.
Not ideal.
Not. So, silly season will continue throughout the week. That's where we're at, kids. We got a few days left before the draft. Mike Florio, Chris Sims debate the Browns' biggest needs heading into Thursday. We'll have that for you coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily. Brought to you by Ballybet. Coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, go see my friends. Renew your home for the last time. Renew Home Exteriors, siding and roofing products are the best in the business. Renew Home Exteriors will take care of you. Tell them Bo sent you. Don't spend all day with the high-pressure sales guys. The team at Renew won't waste your day with hours of negotiating. Instead, Renew offers an upfront fair price to make your project easy. This month, in fact, take advantage of pre-pandemic pricing plus no interest on payments for 24 months. Renew Home Exteriors. Superior products, superior service. Visit renewestimate.com for more. Z and I debate all the time our biggest needs heading into the draft. Let's let somebody else do it for a time for a change. Here's Mike Florio and Chris Sims.
The Browns. Finally, we get to what
You're down.
we're supposed to be talking about. The team needs for the AFC North, half of the teams, maybe only one of the teams by the time we're done. The Browns have made some moves this offseason. They've added Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle, Juan Thornhill from the Chiefs. But look, they don't have a ton of cap space, not with the Deshaun Watson deal. And they don't have many draft picks because of the Deshaun Watson deal. So what more can they do? What more do they need to do to get themselves in a position where they can be as competitive as they need to be now that Deshaun Watson has the full year to get ready to go?
Yeah, well, they're not far off, like we discussed a lot, right, Mike? I mean, their team, they got some parts about them where you go, damn, there's a lot to like, right? We know the O-line's good. I don't really look offensively to go anything's like glaring right there right now. I think it's all defense. They've changed what they're going to do here. Jim Schwartz is the new D coordinator. So there's two spots that jump out to me, Mike, and they're both defense related. One, pass rusher, something obvious, opposite of a Myles Garrett. I don't know if there's really a presence there right now that you can really look at. So that's like one that jumps out to me. And then the other one is linebacker, right? Linebacker, they got JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He's a smaller type of linebacker, right? But after that, it's guys that are, solid players, but nothing special. They got Anthony Walker back on a 1-year deal, right? So I think linebacker's probably the one I look at to go, they need something there for sure. But it's one of those two positions, Mike, at least for my money.
No first-round pick or second-round pick for the Browns this year. Their second-round pick recently went to the Jets for Elijah Moore. And
right.
Pick number 74. So they go down 32 spots, and they get Elijah Moore, so they've addressed needs there. And they're retooling the offense. And there's been some speculation about Nick Chubb's future, and Kevin Stefanski, head coach of the team, has said that Chubb continues to be an important part of the offense. But if you're going to get the most out of Deshaun Watson, it's not run offense. They need guys that can catch the ball. And they have Amari Cooper, but now they've added Elijah Moore. They need weapons around Watson, and maybe this is the team that looks late round for some help, whether it's tight end who can catch passes, whether it's receiver, and also you need guys who can block. I mean, you've already made the investment in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
It puts a priority on everything around him to get the most out of that player, the $230 million and everything you gave up to get him.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, listen, a lot of what they do is going to be on him for sure, right? I still think Nick Chubb and that O-line are still, they can be a big-time focal point. But, yeah, the pass game's going to be, they're going to rely on that more because of all the things you said. And you look at it and you go, damn, there's some things I like there. And when you talk about Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's a big, strong receiver, he's good. Amari Cooper still can run routes with the best of them. A speed guy in Anthony Schwartz, David Njoku, right, at tight end. The O-line, I think we would both agree, is top 5-ish. At least definite top 10-ish in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. It's top 5-ish really is the question. So, that's where, maybe something to sweeten the pot a little bit. But I feel like it's got to be
30
ultimately as far as the draft is concerned, just because it's a different scheme. And it's a different thought there. And like you talked about before, they had Joe Woods, who was a little more Seattle scheme, and we want smaller, fast guys. And now this is Jim Schwartz, where did he grow up? Oh, Bill Belichick and that school of thinking? Well, that's going to be bigger people. So I got to think that transition has to happen here a little bit.
You're up.
Well, the thing is, and there, some of that has happened already. with some of the stuff that's happened in free agency. And I think we'd like to attack some of that stuff in the draft when you talk about it, certainly up front. And I do think, I don't want to, some of what you're talking about off the top, it speaks to more just the randomness of picking 73 than there are needs. Like, we could have a 53 that would go and you'd feel comfortable with it and you'd feel like a playoff team. But there certainly are needs, and they are up front. It would be really nice to get a player who can make an impact, specifically a defensive tackle with the Perrion stuff, or defensive end. Like, an impact player at either spot at 73 would be a home run. And to me, that feels like the straightest path for what they would do.
If one of your 2 picks in the 3rd round was like an MJ Emerson from a year ago, that is a contributor and an impact player for you on the defensive line, you'd sign up for that all day long.
Yeah. That's really where you are with this thing, but it's going to be a long wait. It's a long wait. What time is that pick? Is that 10:30?
It's probably 10:30. I would say it's after 10 o'clock. And then, like, your other one is
the first round will
93.
last until what? First round will go to, or I'm sorry, the second round starts at 7 on Friday. Is that right? So that'll last till about 9.
And I think it's like, is it 8 minutes per pick?
I can't remember if it's 8 or is it 5.
I think it might go down to 5 on Friday night.
It's okay. Through the second round or into the third?
I think it's both. I believe that's the case, because 8 minutes is for the first round.
Remember, it used to be 15 in the old day.
My God.
Teams have – all right, so it's 10 minutes to make their choice in the first round, 7 minutes in the second, 5 in the third.
So we start speeding it up.
Yeah, and then 4 minutes in the 7th round.
And it's never that long.
No.
Like, the cards are – you get to the point by Saturday, you know 12 picks in advance when you're what your team's doing.
It is pretty interesting how the NFL and their broadcast partners, themselves, the NFL Network and then ESPN, it's really interesting to me how they have how they make the television choices they make, because they have treated now the second round like the first. So you have this big breakdown of every player in the second round. Like, that never used to be the case. Right? When it was all on one day, it was like the first round was done, and then the second round was just rapid fire. And now they treat the second round like the first. And it's really, to your point, it's really not till Saturday that you get this rapid pick where you're not going over every single guy who's picked.
Yeah, which is good, because at that point you're just let's get through it, and let's get to the draft, and let's get to rookie minicamp, and a couple of weeks later, a schedule release, because that will be here 2 weeks after the draft.
Is that what that is?
Usually mid-May.
Yeah, middle of May.
Yeah,
you get that schedule release.
right around that second week, maybe the third week, but that'll be schedule release time.
Jumping ahead to that, it'll be fascinating to see how the league and the television partners view us, because will we get kick times then too? Because we already know who we play. So you'll get the actual schedule, and you'll get the kick times, and you'll get all of that stuff sorted out. It'll be interesting to see how we're judged there.
We will get into this as the week goes on, but knowing that the great city of Kansas City, it should be an unbelievable week in KC. I don't know what the weather looks like.
I was just going to look.
But that town knows how to throw a party. And I got a feeling that I know exactly where the draft's happening at Union Station, the Light District that normally, like, when it's nice out, goes till like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's already a party downtown.
So they got 68 on Thursday for the high, so it'll be fine.
Perfect.
Friday is 60 and then 58 for the high on Saturday. So it gets cooler as the weekend goes along. But for that first round on Thursday, it should be pretty nice.
Oh, my God.
Down there.
And everything's downtown. All your hotels. The only thing not downtown is your football stadium, which is 30 minutes outside.
Yeah. So, it'll be good. It's interesting, though, too, because they don't, they're picking last.
Correct.
So you're just going to wait around forever to get their picks.
Yeah. The Jonas Brothers are going to be there. That's the new entertainment.
Are
they? The Jonas Brothers are performing Thursday night. ESPN announced that today
like
on
the
their
Jonas
show.
Brothers.
Like, it's I don't even know. Like, it's going to be it's going to be a giant bash. It's going to be a big old fat party.
Sure.
A lot of barbecue.
It is amazing. It amazed me here a couple of years ago when we did it. It was amazing. It's amazing how many people get excited to watch human beings go shake another human being's hand.
And that's Peter
You're not
King.
watching a game.
Yeah, Peter
Like,
King
it's
talked about it this morning. He goes,
crazy.
It was just, it was like, I think it was 8 years ago
Yeah.
that the draft was in Chicago. And he's like, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
Peter King's like, I wrote, it's never going to work.
Yep.
Like, who's going to go watch this?
Yep.
Like, it's made for New York City.
Yeah.
Leave it in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Stop messing with it. And now, I mean, people bid on it like they bid for Super Bowls.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. It's the power of the league. Speaking of the league, you will be joined by one of the men who work for the league, the great Nick Shook. We'll join Gibby here momentarily. We will have Greg Newsome from the podium in the second hour of the program. In addition to that, Gibby's interview with CBS draft analyst Ryan Wilson. You have that to look forward to, which is very, very nice. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
And we welcome you back into the Cross Country Mortgage Campus here in Berea. I'm Jason Gibbs. Hour 2 of Cleveland Browns Daily rolls along on a Monday, a Draft Monday. Draft week is finally here. You'll hear from CBS Sports NFL Draft Analyst Ryan Wilson coming up bottom of the hour. Greg Newsome in about 15 minutes from now, Browns defensive back. Right now, to the Twisted Tea Hotline we go, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of the Cleveland Browns, keeping it twisted. Our good friend from the NFL Network and NFL.com, the one and only Nick Shook, joins us on the Twisted Tea Hotline. Happy draft week, my friend, and given the weekend that was in Cleveland sports, onward and forward with the draft.
That's one way to describe it. I'll tell you, everybody in Cleveland's probably about ready to move on. The
Dude,
rough one they had. And,
awful. Awful. If the Cleveland Cavaliers can turn it around and win this series, they must have what happen, Nick Shook?
They must pull a rabbit out of their hat, I think, based on what – I mean, basically it comes down to this. Okay, if you're a Cavs fan, you take it one game at a time from here. You say, well, look, in the third quarter yesterday, they showed what worked, and it wasn't until Evan Mobley got in foul trouble that they, got into a situation where they couldn't run their offense as they intended, and Darius Garland couldn't penetrate off the dribble anymore, and the run kind of fell apart. I don't think it was an energy thing. I think it was a personnel thing. But the problem is now you have to take it one game at a time. You say, you come back home, you defend home court, nobody's eliminating us at home. And if you win Game 5, then you just say, well, we'll see what happens in Game 6. The biggest problem, though, and the reason I say the rabbit out of the hat, Gibbs, they don't have LeBron James on their roster. The last time they were down 3-1 and came back in a series, they happen to have that guy and a bunch of veterans who have experience that can lead them back to victory. And I just don't feel too confident, as much as it pains me as a Cavs fan to say I think that we're nearing the end of this run.
I would agree with you, my friend. Unfortunately, it was such a struggle to see that team who has performed so well all season long in the last 48 hours just crumble. I don't recall seeing something like that in a while.
What it is it's a flawed roster that lacks outside shooting, that lacks the ability to space the floor against a team that's going to bully you, that's going to try to win with physicality. And this is what Toronto did to the Cavs, too. Same thing as what the Knicks are doing. They're pushing them around, and the Cavs aren't necessarily tough enough to deal with that. And the finesse elements only work when Garland gets involved, and he didn't get involved at Madison Square Garden until the second half yesterday. And you're not going to win games if that doesn't happen. So, not to mention the fact that Donovan Mitchell put on a stinker of a performance. 11 points is not going to get the job done when you're the team's star. I think that they need to go into the offseason and address their needs, get an enforcer as a backup center, and run it back again next year.
Well, the Browns are going to address their needs on Friday night, late, probably 10:30, 11 o'clock before we make a pick as of now, Monday at 2:08 p.m. But Nick Shook, the Browns, they don't pick till 74. A lot going to happen before they draft. And it starts Thursday night at 8 o'clock, continues Friday night. Rounds 2 and 3 at 7, and then at noon on Saturday with the remainder of the draft. It is draft week. There are lots of storylines, but it's also silly season, Nick Shook. What are you thinking here as we get into draft week? And this draft seems to be a little different than in years past.
Well, the momentum in the last few days has really shifted, and it starts with pick number 2. I think at this point it sounds like the Panthers are pretty set on Bryce Young. Do I agree with that necessarily? I don't know. We'll see. But, it sounded like, at least in terms of team need and where they were drafting, Panthers go quarterback at 1, Texans go quarterback at 2, then the rest of the draft unfolds. Well, not so fast, my friend, in the words of Lee Corso, because now it sounds like the Texans might not want to take a quarterback. And quite frankly, nobody has any idea of what the Texans are going to do at number 2. And I think that's really the pivot point. That's where the whole draft starts to really unfold, and it's a level of uncertainty at the spot that we haven't seen in some time. I think back even to recent drafts. Trevor Lawrence was the surefire number 1 a couple of years ago. Zach Wilson was pretty much number 2. We knew that was in the bag. Big question, in that draft was Mac Jones going to be number 3? And it ended up being Trey Lance. And we all bought into that smokescreen for a couple weeks prior. I think that there's actually fire behind this smoke in Houston. And the reason is Nick Caserio's track record has not, we don't have a long history with him in Houston. And we especially don't have a long history with him because he's now on his 3rd head coach. And this new pairing, there's no background to rely on. Well, this is what they did in the past. It's a new first-time head coach. It's a guy that's beloved in Houston as a former linebacker, and D'Amico Ryans, who's now running the team. Defensive guy. And you wonder, maybe they spend that on a guy like Will Anderson out of Alabama or somebody else and address a different position of need. It could be a Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. The projections really span the spectrum, I think, with what they do at number 2 if they don't go quarterback. And the other thing, too, though, and this is why I have a hard time necessarily thinking it's the right decision to not go quarterback unless they just don't feel so highly on C.J. Stroud as some other people do, is, look, we know how important quarterback is, right, Gibbs? I mean, it's the most important position in sports, not just in football, but in sports. If you don't have a guy at quarterback, you don't have a legitimate chance to win football games. Your ceiling is lower. You can hope to, if everything else goes right, you might get in the playoffs, and that's about it. The days of Trent Dilfer playing quarterback in an offense on a team that is supported by a legendary defense, the days of those types of guys playing, it just doesn't happen anymore. It's too much of a passing league. So if you don't have a quarterback on your roster and you have an opportunity to take a guy, why wouldn't you do it? Unless you're not very confident in the remaining guys available, which at that point you go in a different direction, which really would shake things up because then you get teams moving up because, let's say Houston goes edge rusher. Then all of a sudden pick number 3 is the most coveted pick in the draft, and teams that might want quarterbacks in the future or plug-and-play starters right now, they're going to be on the phone calling Monty Austinford out in Arizona, the new GM, and saying, hey, what do you want for 3? We want to move up there. We like Stroud. We want to take him. And there's also the other wild card of what do people think about Anthony Richardson? The projection on him is all over the place. You've seen him as being maybe the 4th overall pick in Indianapolis, as low as the 20th pick to Seattle. It's all over the place. So it's exciting because, talking about this, I'm getting excited about the uncertainty of it. It's been a grind to get to this point, I think, but this is where the payoff really happens. And I think we might be in line for some serious fireworks on Thursday night.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, because I feel like there hasn't been a whole lot other than what's gone on in the past week involving C.J. Stroud, a guy that a month ago, as Peter King said it in his piece, was the number 1 pick going to Carolina. We saw the pro day. We saw Josh McCown broing it up with him after his pro day workout. We all thought C.J. Stroud to Carolina, no-brainer. Now it's Bryce Young, and now where's C.J. Stroud going to fall? Peter King this morning talking about he might not go in the top 7 picks. I don't think that'll be the case. Someone will come up and grab him. But it is truly silly season, and as Bo Bishop, our one co-host here on Cleveland Browns Daily, just said, who's dropping all this stuff about Stroud? Are they trying to get him to fall back? Are they trying to decrease the value enough so that another team can come up and go get him? What is going on with C.J. Stroud?
That's a great question because, like you said, a month ago, it was the only big question mark for him. There was 2. And it was, is what he did against Georgia in the Peach Bowl, is that who he is? Or is he just really good in bowl games? Because he had the great showing against Utah in the Rose Bowl the year prior, but he couldn't beat Michigan. He couldn't win those big games. So, which guy is he? And then he had a great pre-draft process. He tore it up in Indianapolis at the Combine. He had a good pro day where it's hard to not have a good performance at a pro day because everything's structured to make you look good. Everything seemed to be trending in the right direction. I've been in the C.J. Stroud camp. He's my QB1 in this class, not to take anything away from Bryce Young, but I think in terms of build and the skills that translate immediately in the NFL, accuracy is one of them, and I think he's checked that box. And my only other question with him really was, is he ever going to use his legs more to extend the play and really take advantage of his athleticism? And he even spoke about that in Indy. So what has happened? You're right. Bo is absolutely right. Who's putting this out there? Now, I'm never going to be able to be the one who's following the money to find the source of these things because it's just too crazy this time of year. But there are some teams that, in that top 7 that could be needing a quarterback. Now, the Seahawks did just extend Geno Smith, but if they wanted a project player or somebody like that, maybe they look for somebody else. I don't think that the Stroud thing is a fit for them, but I see Indianapolis. That's a team that needs a quarterback. They have bumbled through the position in the last few years. Phillip Rivers was the only bridge guy that worked. Carson Wentz was a disaster. Matt Ryan, even more of a disaster. They've got to be out of patience. They got to figure out who's going to be their quarterback in the future after trying to figure out their way through the last half decade without Andrew Luck. That's a team that I think that makes a ton of sense. The Raiders could be in play, okay? This is a team that hosted Bryce Young for a visit. This is a team that has Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster, but he's not a spring chicken exactly. He's not super old, but he's not going to be there for 15 years. So maybe that's a fit. Maybe they move up. They've been kind of active when it comes to the top 30 visits and taking a closer look at some of these quarterbacks when they, previously weren't necessarily in range to take one of those top two guys. Maybe they move up to 3. I'm not sure, but I think that there are some teams that could have their eye on him. And if he is falling, they got to be licking their chops a little bit and figuring out, okay, how can we move up and get him? This is a scenario we didn't anticipate prior. And I still go back to Houston and think, well, what are you going to do at quarterback if you don't draft a quarterback? You're just going to go back with Davis Mills again? Like, okay, all right, I guess that's fine. If you're not in love with the guy, don't spend a pick on him. But that makes it really hard to believe. But I do think there is some fire behind the smoke because it's just been a little too loud and a little too sudden for me to think otherwise.
Talking with Nick Shook from the NFL Network and NFL.com. From a Browns perspective, as I mentioned, not picking till number 74. 2 biggest needs. Give me one from each side of the football that you feel like this team needs to address here on Thursday, Friday or Saturday for all intents and purposes.
Right, because Thursday they're going to be a non-participant. Get comfy. Go do something else on Thursday night. Go see a movie.
All right, we have a draft show from 8 to midnight, Shook.
Oh, have fun filling those hours. Hey, well, and as the Cardinals make their pick, we're going to look ahead to tomorrow when the Browns pick. You can talk about, you can say, hey, you have a second-round pick. You traded a second-round pick to get a second-round pick of a couple years ago and got a third back. His name's Elijah Moore. You can rave about him for an hour if you need to. But when it comes to needs, I'm still thinking their front 7 needs something. And, they've stood pat at edge rusher. Obo might be the guy, I guess, for them off the edge. I felt like they still needed to make another addition, and maybe they do later in this draft. When it comes time for them to pick. I mean, they scored last time, last year with the pick they spent on MJ Emerson. He's been a very solid player. It's been a great move. So maybe, the advanced scouting, you don't have a first-round pick. You get to dig a little bit deeper into the class and find some value at that spot. But I think it's got to be front 7. I've, for years, thought they've been too thin at linebacker to the point where they're going out and getting Deion Jones last year, and they're getting Reggie Ragland off the scrap heap, and throwing them in there because they lack depth, they lack playmakers. But, again, they're kind of in a similar position at the spot again, so maybe that's just the philosophy of the front office at this point. I think that you could use some more depth in that front 7, though. The interior, they've added a few guys. They look a lot better in that spot than they did prior, but I think you could never have too many bodies there. And especially if you're going to rotate at edge rusher opposite Myles Garrett, I think you could go there as well. So it's the front 7, and specifically if they're not going to go linebacker, you go front 4 because this isn't the best linebacker draft anyway. So you go front 4 because there is some value in this class. And then offensively, they've done a decent job at receiver. That was probably going to be the spot that everybody focused on prior was, hey, they need another weapon at receiver. Well, they go get Elijah Moore. They get Marquise Goodwin. And then maybe you go get another slot guy to develop. You did that last year with David Bell, but you kind of know who he is. He's a little physically limited. Anthony Schwartz is going to be fighting for a roster spot. So there's a lot of value in this class. I think he gets to rounds 3 and 4. I don't know if Tank Dell's still going to be there, but that's been my guy for a long time out of Houston. He's one of my favorite guys of the combine. But there are other players who, provided there's not a huge run on receivers, you could add it with a round 3 or round 4 pick and kind of work them into the system as well. Otherwise, you look offensively, you got your quarterback, you got your running backs. You're going to be asking more of the young guys you have at running back, Jerome Ford being one of them after the Kareem Hunt thing has, they parted ways and there's no mending of fences there. And I think you're okay at tight end as well. So offensive line, you've been solid for a while. I don't think you're going to get any better at the position with a draft pick. So I think it goes back to receiver, and you look at some of these, because there's a ton of slot guys in this draft. A ton of undersized receivers. I've never seen this many undersized. I guess is kind of a derogatory way of describing them, but they're under 6 feet tall. They're smaller guys. They're made to play in the slot. Some of the top guys in this group are not going to be there. The Josh Downs types, they're going to be gone. The Zay Flowers, they're going to be gone. But you're going to get the opportunity to select somebody else. And if you really want to do it, go back on the defensive side real quick, just because I like the depth of this class's position. I know you're strong at corner right now. You got Newsome, you got Ward, you got Emerson. But I also think you can't have too many quality defensive backs. And if you can snag one of those in, day 2, wouldn't be a bad move either. I think there's some serious depth and value in this group.
Nick Shook dropping a lot of knowledge here on Cleveland Browns Daily. All right, real quick, final question. It's like a two-parter, but does the Aaron Rodgers deal get done by the end of the draft? It's been 40 days since he announced his intention to play for the Jets, by the way.
You know what 40 days is, Gibbs? I don't know how much of a biblical scholar you are, but that's a biblical number. That's, Jesus spent 40 days and nights in the desert, during his fasting period.
Yeah, you're
40
getting
days
deep
of
here.
waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Oh, well, private school background. I had to do some Bible study back in the day, right? That is about the point where we should be feeling with Aaron Rodgers. I feel like we were also out in the desert for the last 40 days, 40 nights, because, look, man, I'm ready to move on. We're all ready to move on. We just want an answer. We want a solution, and I think it happens before the end of the draft because they're not going to get the first-round pick from the Jets. They're not, because you don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play more than 1 year. But you might get a second-round pick. And what do the Jets have? They got 2 of them. So I think that the deal gets done somewhere within day 2. Maybe they sit back and spend their higher 2 and then send a later 2 to the Packers. I think we're close. I think this is the week it finally ends, and we can finally move on. And also ignore the rumblings that he could maybe go to another team, which I think is a little extreme. So it gets done before the draft. There's your answer.
What about Lamar Jackson?
That I don't feel as confident in. I would not be surprised to see the Ravens spend a later pick on a quarterback and hedge their bet. Not a starting caliber quarterback, not one of the guys in the first round, unless you get a massive blockbuster type deal where somebody signs a new offer sheet and then sends the Ravens 2 first-round picks and they have the capital to move up. But that would have to happen like today, tomorrow, Wednesday. I don't think that all happens during the first round of the draft. So I think what happens is this continues to drag out. We don't make a ton of progress. The Ravens hedge their bets and go get a quarterback to, park behind, at the third string spot and maybe potentially develop in the event that they don't have Lamar and they get their good old Lamar Light playing quarterback this year instead. And they have somebody else behind him while they wait to see what Lamar does. I think that's probably more likely is they go later round, find a guy to develop, spend a later pick on him. They don't have a lot of picks to work with. I think they have 5, which is unusual for the Ravens. And that's probably the most likely scenario. I just don't see this being resolved because there's just been no movement. It's the gap between them in terms of communication is just, this is a situation in which I'm not one to pound the table for agents necessarily, but look, if he had an agent, I feel like we'd probably have this might be done by now. And,
I think it would be.
Not, and I don't think it's going to get any closer until we hit May. Maybe it gets a little bit closer by then. I don't think he's going to show up to OTAs, minicamp, none of that stuff. It's going to drag on for a little bit.
Nick Shook, appreciate the time as always. Will you be in Kansas City or will you be in the great CLE this weekend?
I will be in the great CLE, my friend. We will be doing it remotely because, quite frankly, there's not the most value from being at the draft. It is very much a made-for-TV event, and most of what you'll glean and most of what my job responsibilities and duties entail will be done from here. So I'll be surrounded by the Browns fans who are getting tired, waiting until day 2, round 3 to make their first pick.
Well, there you go. Maybe we'll call you and have you on Thursday night too.
Yeah, fill some time. Hey, you gotta find a way to fill some time, right?
I'm honored every time you come on with us. You still take my phone calls, so I got that going for me, which is nice. Nick Shook, appreciate the time, my friend.
You still take my phone calls. What are you talking about? Thanks, Gibbs. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. We'll talk soon. Good luck this weekend. Nick Shook from NFL.com and the NFL Network. Up next, more from your Cleveland Browns and last week's media availability. It's Greg Newsome talking to the media. That's when Cleveland Browns Daily rolls on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Be part of one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Join the Brown season ticket member waitlist today for the best chance at securing tickets for all home games in future seasons. Don't miss out. Go to clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to reserve your spot today and ask for the judge. He'll take good care of you. In case you missed it, from last week at the podium, Browns corner Greg Newsome II. Have a listen.
You're down.
The trade request stuff, and you just vehemently denied it. Just what went through your mind when you saw it?
I was mad. I really just don't think people really truly understand how much, first of all, Cleveland means to me. Like getting drafted here, the fans embracing me right away, just things like that. So I really just don't understand, something like that. I wouldn't do that. I truly adore Cleveland, so. I was definitely mad.
Why did you change agents then?
That's a personal reason. I didn't trade agents to try to get out of here. I traded agents because I think, for my career, it'll help me in the long run. So I traded agents just for personal reasons.
Hey, Greg, a lot was made of when you tweeted no when somebody on Twitter asked you about playing in the slot. So what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that was the last year's issue. Now with a new defensive coordinator, just, being able to sit down, talk to him, see a new scheme and things like that. I feel like a little bit last year, I feel like I was more of a linebacker, in certain instances than an actual cornerback. Talking to, Jim Schwartz and being able to, get in his new scheme and things like that. I feel like we'll work very well together.
So are you open to playing some inside?
Yeah, I feel like that was never, the clear issue was just not me playing in the slot. Against Cincinnati, guarding a guy like Tyler Boyd, guarding guys like that. I have no problem with doing that. I just feel like in certain cases it was just I was more of a linebacker than a cornerback.
So do you like the role that Jim Schwartz is laying out for you, and are you excited about it, and what do you think it's going to be like?
Yeah, I'm super excited. His track record, speaks for itself. Just the way he uses his D-line, is going to help us corners, so much more. So, just getting to talk to him, seeing how the scheme is going to be ran, I'm super excited.
Can be a leader for him. I mean, he's going to need some guys to kind of get this thing going in the right direction. Do you feel like, are you going to be that guy for him, or one of those guys for him?
Yeah, I mean, that's a goal of mine, going into year 3, being around the program, seeing things that, we need to fix and things like that. Being more of a vocal leader this year and things like that, I feel like I'm definitely ready to take the next role.
What do you think needs fixing most on the defense?
I think it's just consistency. That's what we're preaching, right now is just, being consistent. We've had games last year where we looked super dominant, then we had games where we didn't. So I think our thing is going to be, being consistent.
Greg, is there a chance things could change in training camp and you end up on the outside, or are you the nickelback going into this offseason program?
I would say no role is kind of stamped. With his new scheme, I feel like if you watch his stuff before, the corners that he had before, everyone plays, a lot of everything, So I kind of don't know exactly what my role will be. But, just talking to him, I'm just super excited to, get with my new teammates and, get ready for this next season.
You do play in the slot a fair amount. Do you think you'll be that much better for it, for having played it some last year, and that you might be able to shine and excel in it even more this year if you do?
Yeah, I feel like I'm, super confident, whatever role, that I need for that game or for that week, I'm super confident that I'll be able to get the job done.
Greg, I guess go ahead, Chris.
What has Juan meant to, how much have you talked to Juan since he signed here, and what can he mean to this room, just kind of, coming in, having won a couple of Super Bowls and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I actually met Juan, I think last year. We trained together in the offseason last year. So I was super excited, getting to, meet him again in person and, just talking to him, and a guy who has championship pedigree, he knows what it takes. So he's going to be able to be that guy, when the going gets tough and things like that, he knows how to get through it. So we're super excited to get him in this building.
Greg, I know you played, obviously, some slot. Your rookie year, it was more last year. I guess when you were playing in the slot more outside less, did you feel like last season, as it were, on that you weren't getting to build on some of the things that you were starting to excel at from your rookie year? Was that part of maybe the frustration there?
Yeah, that was too. And then, we just weren't winning ball games. That's the biggest thing for me. team success. So, we're not winning. I feel like I wasn't making a lot of plays. I'm just frustrated. But I think in this next year, just talking to Schwartz once again and, seeing his new scheme and things, I think it's going to be great.
Specific to you guys, Greg, with Coach Howard leaving, and obviously Brandon was here before, just talk about that transition of having a new specific corner coach now.
Yeah, it's crazy now because we're split up a little bit more than we were last year. But, yeah, I was with B. Lynch. He was a corner coach last year. He just didn't really, have the title. But I'm super excited for him. He's a great coach. We love him, and, we're expecting to do big things this year.
Did your frustration ever get to the point where you thought you might want to go somewhere else?
Nah. I said it from the jump. Like, I want to be one of those guys to stay in one place their whole career. Once again, the fans and everything about Cleveland is all what I'm about. I'm hoping to be here for the long run.
You feel like, even now with, going to the Cavs-Knicks series and all that kind of stuff, it even just brings you more embedded into the community and how much you love it here, right? Can you talk about
it
that?
was crazy. Going to the game, it was just electric. It just shows what the future can hold. Obviously we got to start now. This is day one of workout, so, we got to keep building upon, but, trying to get to that playoff, trying to get to that Super Bowl run, I could just tell, how excited the fans were, for the Cavs, so I can only imagine for us. Am I a good softball player? Oh, I'm crazy. Yeah, I'm great.
Greg, do you feel with a new defensive coordinator and all the new players on this defense, has there been fresh life, I guess, kind of breathed into the defense, that side of the ball, coming back into the building this week, do you feel like?
For sure. I think you could just tell by, everybody coming back. Like, we have all of our guys here, super excited, ready to go. And, once again, just seeing his track record, he's been a part of Super Bowl defenses. He had top 5, top 1 defenses, so I think we're super excited.
You've had you guys have had a lot of talent on your side of the ball the last couple of years. So I guess, what can Jim Schwartz do as a defensive coordinator to really just bring the best out of all of you guys and get you to all play as a cohesive unit?
Yeah, I think it's just putting guys in a
30
and succeed, and I feel like he has shown that in the past. Getting our guys up front to go get after the quarterback, which is he's shown that in the past. So we're super excited with him, and as a secondary, seeing his track record with the D line is only going to help us out. We're super excited.
Recommendations on any receivers from Michigan State?
Jaden Reed, yeah, my guy.
Yep. All right, that's Greg Newsome II from last week's media availability. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, my interview with CBS Sports draft analyst Ryan Wilson from the best podcast available. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Hi, Gabe.
Draft week is here. Be sure to catch the Browns draft preview show tonight from 7 to 8 on 850 ESPN Cleveland, all along the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns radio network. Browns GM Andrew Berry, the Athletics' Dane Brugler join Ken Carman and Nathan Zagura tonight. From the best podcast available, a little bit more of a deep dive into this year's NFL draft. Here's yours truly with CBS Sports NFL draft analyst Ryan Wilson. Why do you like?
You're down. You watch Bryce play, and that's why I like Bryce Young. And here's the thing: like CJ is a really good football player. And you watch him in the fall on television. You're sitting home on Saturday, and you're going, okay, yeah, he's making some plays, but he's throwing to last year was Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, the second, and he made plays this year without Jackson Smith-Njigba, by the way. So he was able to do that. But Marvin Harrison had a huge season in 2022, and you sort of get away from the fact that he's actually doing a lot of this as well. A lot of this is on CJ. Like, he's making these throws. He's layering these throws to the second level. He's also had an offensive line that every year you have 2 or 3 guys that are getting drafted high. Alabama, I mean, it's hard to make a sob story for Alabama. But in Bryce's defense, he hasn't been throwing to the same receivers that Tua and Mac Jones were throwing to, all those first-round picks that got drafted. He's throwing just a bunch of guys, many of whom may not get drafted. And he does it consistently off platform. There's probably no one better in this draft that moves inside the pocket with as much subtlety and effectiveness as Bryce does. Never rattle. We were talking to Will Anderson of the Combine, and he said, I've seen Bryce get hit by SEC defensive linemen time and time again, and every time Bryce gets up and he's better on the next play. And another way to say that is that no moment's too big for Bryce. We've seen moments overwhelm quarterbacks. We've seen moments overwhelm Will Levis at times and Anthony Richardson, and you don't see that with Bryce. The only issue is that he's 5'10". That's a pretty huge issue. That's historically small by quarterback standards. But if he's 6'1", guess what? We're talking about him like we talk about Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, and he's going first, and that's a wrap. And I think he starts from day one. I think he probably has the best rookie season. Obviously, fit matters and players around him matter. The Texans aren't a great football team now, and neither are the Panthers, and it'll be fun to watch those two organizations. Should CJ go to Carolina and Bryce go to Houston, how they track over the course of the season. But there are no holes in Bryce's game other than the fact that he's short, and you might say, well, balls get batted down. He didn't get balls batted down at Alabama, and I think, the best predictor of future success is what you've done in the past, and this dude has been incredibly successful.
Talking with Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports NFL draft analyst, NFL coverage and analyst throughout on CBSSports.com, also CBS Sports multiple platforms, podcast as well with the First Pick podcast with Rick Spielman. All right, let's talk about those Ohio State guys. Jackson Smith-Njigba, a lot of people think there could only be one wide receiver. I don't think that'll be the case that goes in the first round, but obviously he's toward the top of the list. Paris Johnson has really elevated, and I know in your latest mock you have him going 9th to Chicago. And then a guy that I know Browns fans are hoping maybe is around later on night number 2 of the draft in that third round, Zach Harrison, the edge rusher out of Ohio State. If you could talk a little bit about those guys.
Yeah, let's start with Zach Harrison. I think Zach Harrison will be around. I talked to teams, so I was at the Ohio State Pro Day to watch CJ, then all the other guys were there as well. And by the way, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's going to be pretty good. Just a hunch. Watching him catch passes from CJ, he flashed. But in terms of Harrison, sweet mercy. Again, I was talking about Will Levis building someone in the lab. That's what a defensive end looks like when you build him in the lab. He is long. He tested well. The issue is he's a little high-waisted, and that's sort of a scouting term. But his long legs are sort of skinny-ish, and at times you want those defensive ends to be a little thicker in the lower half to when you're setting the edge against these offensive linemen in the NFL. That said, again, the arm length, the athleticism, he's a little stiff at times in his movements when you watch the tape, and you'd like him to be a little bit more explosive. And I think the reality is that when you talk to NFL teams about him, they love the body type and they love the player, but he may be there when the Browns eventually get on that clock with pick 74. He might be there pick 98. He might be there pick 111 in the 4th round. I think I've heard mostly early day 3 because of the stiffness at times. But if you told me he went in the third round, I would certainly believe that all day long. Paris Johnson Jr., 36-inch arms. Like, his arm length is the same as DeJuan Jones, and obviously he weighs 70-ish pounds depending on the day, less than DeJuan. And you have the position flexibility. Played right guard in 2021. Last year played left tackle. Athleticism out of this world. Had a great pro day, did the workout. I know some teams were unhappy that DeJuan didn't work out at the pro day, but that was his choice, and that's fine. But Paris worked out, and he did himself favors by working out because you were able to see him move in person. You were able to see the athleticism in person going through the offensive line drills, and that showed up on tape. There's stuff that needs to be refined, but you can say about every player at every position coming into the draft. But there are teams that like him a lot. There are teams that like him in the top 10 a lot, and there are teams that are considering trading up to go get Paris Johnson Jr. probably inside the top 10. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's one of those cases where what have you done for me lately? You forget about him because he only played in 3 games, only had 5 catches because of the hamstring. But where we're in the Super Bowl, we talked to Garrett Wilson and C.J. Stroud separately, and both of them said, without provocation, that Jackson Smith-Njigba was the best wide receiver on that team in 2021. He led the team in receiving. He led the team in receiving yards, and that group includes, as I mentioned, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, both first-round picks. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to be a first-round pick. He's going to be a top 5 pick. And of course, C.J. Stroud. So that gets your attention, and the short shuttle 3-cone that Jackson did at the Combine was the best of anyone there. Over the pro day circuit, there have been over 1,000 kids that work out of these pro days at every single position all across the country. Jackson ranked second, I think, in a 3-cone and short shuttle, and that's a great indication of short area quickness and ability to change directions and those sorts of things. He ran a 4.5 at the pro day. It looked fast in person. Every team I talked to said that's fast enough. So he is going to be in the conversation for wide receiver 1. I heard primarily it's him and Zay Flowers, interestingly, out of Boston College. You haven't heard a lot about Zay, but teams love Zay as well. So Jackson didn't work out. Didn't play much of the season because of the injury. But I think a lot like Jamar Chase is not going to matter. We've seen him work out. We know what he can do. We saw his tape in 2021. And just like the year before with Jamar, when he didn't play the last year because of a COVID opt-out, turns out it didn't matter. He's a good football player, and I think that's going to be the case with Jackson. He's going to come in and have the same sort of productivity that we saw from his teammates Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave when they came into the league last year.
Talking with Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports NFL and NFL Draft analyst. Follow him on Twitter at Ryan Wilson CBS. Is the best position in this draft also the deepest position? And if so, what would that position be in your opinion?
I think cornerback is pretty deep. I think that's a great place to start. Tight end is deep, which is kind of weird to say because you don't say that very often. Edge rusher has some guys that you can get on day 3. They're going to contribute right away. Now, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, as you mentioned, those positions are not deep. But in terms of cornerback, and the Browns could be in the market for a cornerback for sure. Christian Gonzalez, these guys are going to be, they'll be at their new sites giving their press conferences, and then looking for homes by the time the Browns get on the clock, so they don't have to worry about these players. But Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, Deontay Banks, Joey Porter Jr., those guys will be gone in the first round. There's buzz that Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State could be a first-round pick, and he's interesting because he's 6 feet, but he weighs 166, and that might give Browns fans flashbacks to Greedy Williams. But this guy is an absolute ball hawk. I think he had 13 career interceptions, 6 pick sixes, and he is probably not even probably. He's the best ball hawk in this class. And another player that's getting some first-round buzz is Julius Brents. Juju Brents out of Kansas State. He's 6'2.5". Ran a 4.53, but again, like Jackson Smith-Njigba, the short shuttle and the 3-cone were off the charts, and just talks about that short area quickness. If we're talking about the when the Browns are on the clock, some guys that maybe will be there. Garrett Williams out of Syracuse tore his ACL during the season. He's a tough player against the run, can play in coverage. He's undersized in terms of his height, weight, but he plays much bigger than that. I think he's 5'10", 5'11", like 185, 190. Corey Trice is a huge cornerback out of Purdue, the 4.4s. He also tested off the charts. Let's see. Let me give you one more name here. How about let's go with Eli Ricks. LSU transfer went to Alabama. Long kid. I was at the Alabama Pro Day, and he's fluid. His movements are fluid. There's some can he be coached up concerns, but in terms of immaturity, not a bad kid, but just that sort of thing. That said, if you can put up with Nick Saban for a year, you can probably handle just about anything. He is long, ran 4.6, maybe 4.58. He plays faster than that. Didn't start at Alabama last year, but when he got on the field and got his opportunity, he took advantage of it. And he could be there in the fourth round, even though at times he's played like a day two talent for sure.
All right, so we talked about wide receiver edge. I know defensive line and linebacker that aren't as deep as in years past. What about the running back room, especially the running back position, maybe on day 3? You know, I've read some stuff. I know that you've talked about it a little bit as well. I feel like the Browns could be in a spot there to go get another guy, especially if they don't bring back Kareem Hunt right now, Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford, a guy that they picked up last year from Cincinnati. But I feel like there could be a need there at running back maybe on day 3. What do you think about that running back position?
It's deep, and that's another place where so the conversation starts with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? But the issue is you can draft those guys in the first round or the first 40 picks, but are you going to get the same? Are you overpaying for productivity, right? Because Dameon Pierce, I think, was a 4th-round pick last year, went to day 3, went to Houston and just balled out, and that's the math you're doing, and that's actually good news for the Browns. And it's funny that the Saquon Barkley draft, when he went 2nd overall, I think, Nick Chubb goes in the 30s. And you could argue Nick Chubb has been more effective, and probably pretty easily, because Saquon missed time with the ACL injury. And Chubb's getting paid now, as he should, but you had him on that rookie deal where you were saving a little money in the front end. But either way, so there are going to be a lot of guys that are going to be available. A guy that I absolutely love, I don't know if he's going to be there early or that late 3rd-round pick or the 74th pick, is Roschon Johnson out of Texas. He might be there. Like, I like him a little more than some other people do. And Roschon was the backup to Bijan in Texas. He's bigger. He's probably a little stronger. He's not as fast, not surprisingly, but he has low mileage. He's a one-cut-and-go, run-over guy type running back. He gives you an added element in the special teams, both in coverage and return, and he can block all day long. So he checks every box, and he's a great kid. We got a chance to speak with him as well at the Combine. I love Roschon Johnson. I love him, like 2nd round, love him, but he may be there in the 3rd, and that could be a target. Completely different player. Maybe there at 74 because of his size is Devin Achane, the super sprinter speed running back out of Texas A&M. He's only 188, but he runs between the tackles like he's 250. And I was talking to him at the Combine because he legit ran a 10.1800, which is, I've been told, extremely fast. I said, have you ever, over the course of your 20-something years on Earth, anyone ever ran you down? He goes, I have no idea what it feels like to be caught from behind. In my life, no one has ever caught me. So that's the type of speed we're dealing with, and you see it on tape. Like, he runs between the tackles, and he outruns everyone to the end zone. He can take it around the edge and outrun everyone to the end zone. So, pick your poison sort of situation. Another guy that I'll mention that I like that could be early day 3, maybe late day 2, Evan Hull out of Northwestern. He's more of a James Conner type back, not to invoke the Steelers here, but he gives you he's sort of a workhorse back. He's faster than he looks. He did everything in that Northwestern offense because that Northwestern offense stunk. He would run the Wildcat at times, and he can make plays in the passing game as well. So he gives you that added versatility, and he is tough. He takes hit after hit. He's hard to put down. And I love the way he played in the season. Went to the Senior Bowl, had a really good Senior Bowl there as well. But that could be a target with that 111 pick if running back is the position they decide to target there. I don't think he goes day 2, but maybe he does if the team really likes him.
All right, final one, Ryan Wilson. We appreciate the time here. CBS Sports NFL Draft and NFL analyst. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Wilson CBS. Lamar Jackson's situation, the Aaron Rodgers trade to the Jets that we're still kind of waiting for. Do those things come to fruition before draft night? Do we? I don't know if we're going to have an answer on Lamar. I feel like that's going to play itself out here over time. But the Aaron Rodgers trade to the Jets, I'm assuming if you're the Jets, you want those picks this year, but maybe you want to wait a year. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens there and how that dictates what could happen on night 1 of the draft.
No, Jason, that's the thing. And I didn't get the Aaron Rodgers thing from the jump. I am not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan by any stretch, but I thought he made more sense in New York and that it wouldn't cost as much. He's going to be the bridge quarterback, which he's going to be the bridge quarterback anyway, probably in Vegas at some point. and he would fit into that locker room. Now, I know that the 49ers had enough of what was going on there, but we didn't hear about it in the media. It wasn't really a thing. And, you saw him laughing on the sidelines once. Aaron Rodgers feels like if he doesn't want to put his heart and soul into it, he ain't going to put his heart and soul into it. And that's the concern because he's in his late 30s. He could retire at any moment. You're going to give up a ton to get this guy, and then maybe he decides to hang it up at the end of the season. And where you're at, where are you? And my concern also is that defense is so good. You don't need Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers in the prime. You can sort of win with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is an upgrade over Mike White. Mike White did some pretty good things last year when he wasn't hurt. But anyway, that ain't going to happen. So they're basically locked into Aaron Rodgers. I don't know when it's going to happen. You would imagine that the Packers would like to have some compensation before the draft. But the Packers may be in a situation where, like, you know what, let's just get rid of this dude, and whatever happens, happens, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Lamar feels a little more likely to happen, right? It just feels like I wish Lamar had an agent so the agent can handle everything for him, but that's not the world we live in. But I feel like Lamar is just taking his time and maybe making a statement. I don't know, but it feels like that situation is much more. It's much closer to being resolved than certainly what's going on with New York and Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I don't know that. And
30
bad news for the rest of the AFC North is great news for the Ravens. But again, sort of tying this together, if I'm the Jets, I'm just going after Lamar. I'm willing to pay the 2 first-round picks. You're going to have to pay him a boatload of money, but you're going to have to pay Aaron Rodgers as well, even if it's over a shorter-term deal. So we'll see how these play out. It does feel like the Ravens and Lamar will sort something out certainly sooner and probably on better terms than what the Packers and Aaron Rodgers end up doing. But I don't know what Aaron Rodgers and the Jets and the Packers, what that holdup is, although I think Joe Douglas said recently that he's going to be a Jet. It's just a matter of when. And, at this point,
you're up. Thanks to Ryan Wilson from CBS Sports, NFL draft analyst. Be sure for the rest of that interview and all interviews here leading up to draft week, Browns.com or YouTube.com/Browns. And that'll get you all the videos for that. Thanks to Nick Paulus for all of his help. Thanks to Bo Bishop. Thanks to Ryan Wilson. Thanks to the great Nick Shook. I'm Jason Gibbs. The Next Level is next on 850 ESPN Cleveland.